Today objective is to teach basic of the C language to everyone. Till now we people know that lots of people here in the industry are teaching about C language, and lots of videos of C languages on YouTube. Let's discuss what is C language is. So before starting with C language, let's go in the basic of the C language. What is C language is and what is it all about? If we talk about C, C is a general purpose programming language and a procedural computer supporting language. And if you want to know more about C, we all know that C was basically created by Dennis Ritchie and is extremely popular, simple and flexible to use. It's also a structured programming language that is machine independent, extensively used to write various application operating system like Windows and other complex program like Oracle database, Git, Python interpreter and other thing. It is said that C is a God programming language. One say that C is the base for all programming languages. If you know C, you can easily grasp the knowledge of other programming languages that use the concept of C. So let's learn C languages. You can follow on my social media platform, LinkedIn and Instagram. So today the objective of the class is we want to understand following points: structure of C programming, introduce the preprocessor command, understand input on an output concept, to able to use simple input and output statements such as printf and other thing, and to create a variable and constant. So we already discussed what is background of C. C is what type of language? Structural and procedural oriented language. In my next coming video, when I will discuss you in more detail about different types of programming concepts such as structure, object oriented, procedural, what is different between them, but don't go there. Just now understand what is C is just a structural programming language. It consists the high level language because it allows the programmer to concentrate on problem at handy and not to worry about the machine that the program will be using. But there is a lot of debate why some people used to call C as a high level language, some people used to call as C as a middle level language. So where does C actually is present? C is by default present at a middle level because when we talk about high level languages, they are mostly written in English languages, which people like me and you can easily understand. But when we talk about middle level languages, level languages are something in which user is capable of doing the system programming for operating. Not I was talking about C. Sorry, I was talking about what is middle level language. Middle level language is a computer language which uses the instruction that are created using symbols such as letter, digit, and a special character. By default, assembly language comes under middle level language, but by using SM inline concept in C, which is you can see here. Here you can see you can also interact with assembly level languages using C, using its inline concept of ASM, which will help you to understand which can write assembly code inside C. So you can also code inside like assembly inside C, but I don't think any other languages provide this facility. That's why we can call C as a middle level language. Whether you can write in both high level in English and in assembly level language. So let's move forward. Structure of C programming. By default, every of the C program will consist of following things: preprocessor directive, where you include the header file, and if you don't understand what header file is, you can go in my playlist. Basic terminology you should know before coding, and there the first video is talk about the preprocessor directive, global declaration, int main, and these things. This preprocessor directive consists of the all has include things such as include studio.h, math libraries, what support you required from C language to run your code. For example, to run your code you required printf. Basically you required variable declaration and variable definitions and function you define, and use curly braces. You again call the things from the main. So all these things are inside preprocessor directive. Global declaration, whom you are allowing, how many people you are allowing to access your system, on how many variable you want to share with whom. Local and global variable when I will declare, I will discuss more about in detail. Our program basically starts from the main. In main we have a local declaration because this life cycle is stay till main. and we have some statement, and here is other output function as required. This is the basic basic system of C programming. So as I am talking about header file, any file in CPP or in C ending with .h extension is known as header file. It's always comes or known as pre-processing file. It's the pre-processed directory which included our standard input and output function in the program. When we write int main is the place from where your execution of the code actually start. Printf hello world, it will nothing. Printf is the API which is inside stu.h which call which help us to see the output on the console known as hello world, and then we return to the main. If you are talking about C type, as in for example in your daily to daily basis for doing calculation, you have numbers, you have a character for writing your name, and you may have floating point number and derivative number depending upon the things how you want to calculation. Similarly in C there is void type, nothing means void, or this, that's a different debate what is void meaning, but if you are not returning anything you can say it's a void by default. Integral means an integer constant. Integer can be also boolean, true false, because true false can be represented in 0 and 1 symbol. And character by default you have is A B C D E F G, whatever you character include in C, they all by default comes in a ASCII character. They are all comes in ASCII character and they have a integer value associated with it. For example, small a is 97, small b is 98. Similarly for other, integer is our normal integer 1 2 3 4 and numbers, all positive and negative numbers which come inside the integral. After that the floating point numbers, all the decimal things related to our thing is all floating point. Derived means data type which are derived from our cell, you can say structure, union and array. This comes under the derived data type. Now before moving to our class, let's discuss what identifier is. Identifier, for example, if you want to identify people in a crowd by name, you have some way you can call them by their name, or if there are 4 to 5 people with the same name, what you will do, you will call them by their dressing sense, the way they have dressed, or some people have wearing specs, we will call them that the specs person, or depending upon identifying them, simply the way you are want to identify the things. Similarly in C languages, identifier is nothing, thing which represent name in C program for any variable and other function and things is known as identifier. Let's move forward. So always in naming convention, if when I say Rajat, when I say Abhinav, when I say Tarun, when I say XYZ name, we can easily justify which type of person I am calling, and there are some naming convention which human being follow to distinguish between the gender and of the person, and location varies also, the name of the person changes. So there are also that rule is not very harsh and fast because people adopt the name easily, but if you talk about C languages are basic 4 to 5 rules to justify the identifier which is mentioned on the PPT. You can read it till after that we can move forward. Valid name, see here an invalid name. If I am talking about name A is a small case alphabet, it's following all this is coming inside all these 4 rules, so it's a valid identifier. But the problem with the small a letter is that it's not a valid and it's a poor name. Poor name in the sense that A doesn't make any sense. If instead of A I will mention a variable name as marks, then you can easily understand that marks will store the name of student, that marks will store the name, that marks will store the marks of the student and different things which is required for your project on these things. So basically the naming convention which should follow, it should be like variables should have some meaningful name, not just a random name. For example, if you want to develop a project where 10 to 15 people are working, if variable will don't have resemble the correct meaning, then it may be difficult for other people to understand your program what is that. So but if you talk about a dollar sum, here dollar sum violate this first point, first character of should be alphanumeric or can be underscore. Here dollar sum is a illegal name because dollar is start with a special character dollar, in C language we have only one special character known as underscore. Here it's a valid name because student name follow all the criteria, and to name is also first character is digit. Similarly, you can see other and understand by yourself whether they are valid or invalid name. Now moving to forward, as we have seen, we are using printf, return, int and include, but we have not added them in our code. By default, we are using the C utility to run our code. So the word which are reserved in C for its own uses and for its own definition is known as keyword. Similarly, if you are talking about keyword are the reserved word associated with its some meaning inside the programming language. So word which are associated with the programming language and have some special meaning for the compiler, they are known as keyword. We have similarly there is also a rule for keyword as rule for identifier. Now move forward. Variable. If you are talking about variable, anything which changes every time, it's a variable. For example, I am talking about human behavior, it's a very variable. You don't understand what human will behave in which sense, but there are some fixed scenario also. Variable means anything which is occupying space in memory and its location value can be changed as per our execution and as per our need. It is variable. For example, my age is a variable which is not a constant, but if I will say number 5 is a constant. You can't change its value, you can't change one value, you can't change two value. When you increment one in when we add 1 in 1, it will become 2, but you are not changing the meaning of 1. So whose meaning we can't change is known as a constant, but whose definition and meaning we can change is known as a variable. So variable can be defined as a name which we give to storage area that our program can change. So now the question arises, what is different between variable and identifier? Till now we were discussing about variable and identifier, but we both word resemble similar to each other. But now question arises, what is different between a identifier and variable? So both an identifier and a variable are the name allocated by user to a particular entity in a program. The identifier is only used to identify an entity uniquely in a program at the time of execution, whereas a variable is a name given to a memory location that is used to give a value. For a more precise, if I want to distinguish between a variable and identifier, what we know that? Example, if I am giving structure name as A, enum name as B, function name as C, class and all these things, so this is a name of identifier. But if you are talking about a variable, then we can say that the value of the variable can be assigned whatever value are assigned to structure, and enumerator and union, they are a variable. So identifier is a unique name which is given to the identity to identify them, whereas a variable is name that is assigned to a memory location which is used to contain corresponding value in it. So it won't be an aggression to say that all variable are identifier. Means you can say that variable is a subset of identifier. But identifier should not resemble with the keyword because keyword are predefined. But similarly, two or more variables should not have same name. So this, if you can see here is the character and code. Character is a variable type and code is a variable identifier. Code is a variable of type character and it's also identifier. We are identifying character with a code. So we can say that code is a variable on identifier, but when we give some value to it, it become a variable because its value can be changed. Similarly, for the int I, long, national, depth, float and pay scale and double pi. Character means what? Here code and char. Char is a data type, code is a variable name. Int I, long, but how we are identifying the character data type? We are identifying by the name code. Next, move to new slide. Here there are two type of character, char and wchar. Integer are 4 type, short int, long int, and note that basically this difference is of all other size, and size of long is less than size of long is size of int, size of short. You can see there and note it. After that, if you see that what I have written, short int, long int, byte size, minimum value and maximum value. This byte size is basically a compiler dependent thing, but by default what we see, whenever we use any thing related to compiler or anything related to anything, for example our operating system and our hardware, we have, depending on hardware configuration, whether it is 32-bit or 64-bit, this byte size may change and vary in different operating system and different condition and scenarios. So if anyone asks you what is the byte size, better to answer it's a one word or a compiler dependent. Both answer looks conceptual and general word, because you should always be not specific to something, you should always general while giving the interview. Similarly, float, long and long double. Float is for decimal number, double is a more range decimal number, long double means again more range than long double, which you can see here, size of which is greater. We have discussed this thing that there are types of category and C implementation. Void is implemented as void, void integral is represented as boolean, character, integer. Boolean means bool, whether true or false, character is char and w char, integer can be short, int, long int, floating point and other thing. Now the question arises how to run the code. Till now we have seen a basic C code, that in order to run your C code, if you have a hello.c, it consists of just hello word. What we know, if we can just write gcc -o out hello.c / out, this is the way you can run your simple source code. But what is this GCC? GCC is a compiler. So for running any code you require a compiler. But if you talk about industrial level, where there are lots of files are running together, it's very difficult and childish behavior if you are running one file like this, hello.c. Okay. See, if I will run to file, then it will ignore one. Yes, it just ignore one. You can see, if I will again give to you, okay, it's overwritten. Just write a simple C code. Int main, pre-processing directories are included. Then from when the class will start, we will print a simple running C code. What are the basic thing you require to run the code? You should have a source code, right? Correct source code, if I not to be more precise, current syntax semantics source code. So once you have a correct syntax semantic source code, second you should have a compiler. After a compiler, you can run it. But thus, if you have a multiple files associated with you, multiple file means 10 to 15 C files, how will you run it? How in this industry people are running it? Let's talk about that. If we talk about that thing, running multiple file in C or C++, we should require what? Source code. Once we have a source code, we should configure it. Configure means checking whether we have current things associated with us or not. CMake simply means, for example, if you are cooking a food, for cooking a food, what is the basic requirement? You require a recipe and after that raw material. Once you know which raw material is with you, what you will do, for example, you want to make a palak paneer. For making a palak paneer, you should have associated with you palak, paneer and other ingredients such as oil, onion, ginger, dhania, other things should be there to cook a good food. Then what happens? Some people will go and buy it. When people are coming again, people who are going to purchase, they will come again and they will hand it over to their things they purchased by them. When they will hand over it, you will check it, whether what are their requirement for your recipe is there, whether it is fulfilled by your person who has went to and buy it or not. For example, if he forgets something, what will happen? You will tell him, oh man, you don't bring this and that thing, go and please bring. Then he will go again and bring it. Similarly is the work of CMake. Whenever you get a source code, for running your source code, there required environment. Requirement of environment means which compiler version you required, which linker you required, which loader you required, from where should I include files, which files should be included, which should be not. This should all handled by the CMake command. So after running the CMake command, you have configured file, or basically we can say that CMake is nothing but configuring your whole software, whether what is the all requirement of your source file is all the requirement is fulfilling by the source file or not. Once your requirement is fulfilled, what you will do? You require a binaries to run it on hardware. But when you run a make command, then make command will go and take all the source code from the input from the CMake, and it will execute and build a executable. Similarly, CMake is nothing but generate native workspace to give complete environment, and CMake generate the make files. Make file is what? It drives the compiler and the build tool to build your code. So how to run using CMake? Nothing but what you require. Similarly, if for example I am running here using GCC /out. For example, if I don't have a GCC, does the command will run? No, it won't run. Let's remove the GCC and see what error it say. Let's see what it say. We are removing GCC now. I think I have also one more compiler known as Clang. Let's remove that also. We have removed both. Now if I will run GCC -o out hello.c, it will say that command not found. For running your source code, you require GCC. So what CMake will do? CMake go and find everything what is required for by your toolchain. Just I am giving a basic example, like GCC is not there, so it's a work of CMake. It will throw error that this thing is not present, so I won't run. So now how to run by using CMake? By default, the developer who are providing you source code, they also provide you CMake file, and from CMake file, make file get generated. But if you want to create your own make file, it's better always to create your own make file, so that if you are developing any project, so you can just include your source file there and you can run it. It will be also time saving for you and convenient for you. You have to save your file with the name of CMake. Just save your file with the name of cmakelists.txt, and for running a simple code, just you have to use add executable, your binary, your source code name and its output binary name. This one, this hello.c is a place where you give your source code name, and ds is your binary. After execution, what output should you get? It's better always if you see what I have one hi directory and hello and one make file and cmake.txt. Just don't worry about make file, just we discuss about cmake.txt. So after that, you also required one thing installed in a system to run CMake, that is CMake 2. It's already installed. So but if it will not present when you will run CMake, let's see what it's throw the error. So if you will run now CMake command here, it say that CMake is not installed, so you have to install the CMake. In Linux you can do by just simply apt get install CMake. On window and for window and other thing, you can, I will share the in description, I will share the link, you can find there ls. And once you have done that, then after that what your work will be, you will just write CMake. It asking two things to you. path to the source, path to the existing bit. So we require two things to give the path of the source and path where we want our binary to be. By default, if we by default my source code is present in home abhinav.c. So what I will do, cmake -s /home /abhinav c. See what is saying, configuration incomplete, error occurred. Tell me where to find the compiler. If you not remember, I have uninstalled my GCC and Clang. So due to that thing, my compiler is not able to locate where the compiler is. So better this is the way how CMake throw error. It will show you all the things error. If what all the software and tool required by the software to run, and configure it together and put your binaries at one, put your everything required in a make file generated by it, which we'll see in future. What we can do now, let's install GCC, because we have uninstalled it, so that's why it's throwing the error. And better we can also give by one flag is there. If it is not able to relocate it by default, you can use this flag by using -d flag to say which compiler required. If I will give by this way, it will say that build is generated and build file is returned to home abhinav c. By default, if you are not doing anything, it will not give -b flag, it will relocate to the place where your directory is. But you will see after running this command, this file generation, this file generation, this file generation, and other file, these 3 files generated, which is very hectic to make it, and become your workspace become very mess, very untidy and unclean, and it's very difficult to identify where source code is. So it's better to keep your all the installation in a different directory. So let's create one directory with the name of build, where all the build things related to we can put there. Once we have done mkdir build, then go to the build and just run their CMake. It will again not able to run, because what happened, we are not able to identify where our binary is. Where our cmake.txt will be the CMake search for what? CMake search for cmakelists.txt. If that file is not there, it won't run. It is in our previous directory, so just put /. If / we have put it, is able to run, but what is saying, we are not identify, we have not shown which compiler we should use. It's saying that some error has occurred because we have not defined which compiler we should use. So just use this flag. Now if you will see, again these things are generated. This make file is generated right now, which is a important thing where we should focus on. This make file consists of all the things, see where we are going, user removed, home abhinav, cmake binary directory, cmake source directory, variable binary build, and cmake command, no interactive cmake, phonic edit, rebuild cache faster, phony, all these are the things of the make command, which I will discuss in future. See, you will see that your .i file, hello.ci, all are generated and all kept in a separate make file. Similarly, if you will run it, make, it will converted, and you will see that there is a binary with the name ds is generated. So here you can see ds binary you have generated. So ds is the binary of the add executable is generated. So you can see ds here generated by after running make command. When we run ds, you will see running C code, which makes some sense because we have installed, we have written the code for hello.cs running a C source, and we are getting that code. This is a simple one. I have shared one C source file how you can run using CMake command. But when you go in a company, that CMake just doesn't consist of only one thing. only one thing. It also consists of some other thing. It is basically, you can say that CMake is nothing but a configuration file which is used to configure our whole build system. Okay. So what do we understand by CMake till now? CMake is used to control the software compilation process using a single platform and compiler independent configuration file and generate a native Makefile. So where CMake is used for? CMake is an open source cross platform tool that uses compiler and platform independent configuration file to generate a native build tool. We have discussed what does mean by build. Build means from pre-processing phase to generation of executable. This whole process is known as build, and compilation is the part of it. Okay, it makes sense. Let's move forward. If we know that we already have configured, we have already configured everything and we don't require to check it, we can directly using make command. In make command, we have to just follow some simple rule. We have to not this one. This make file can also be created by you. Make file is actually the source code where we build. When we build a source code from scratch, then make file actually works. CMake is what? CMake gives environment. Environment, for example, what you required for a running C source code, it required at least source code. Once you have a source code, what you require? Compiler. Once you have a compiler, what you require? Operating system supporting the compiler. When you have all these things, then what you will create? You will create executable. Once you have executable, the creation of executable is known as make command, and all the configuration, installing of compiler, operating system, this thing we can say that is a CMake work. I am just sharing you a simple project where you already required one file which is in your system, but when you go on the top of the company, when you download from the source code from the top, it may be possible that they are using some utility which is not present in your system to run that thing. For example, when you play a PUBG game, or whenever you play some online game, what they ask for addition of some extension. Who in system programming, all this take care by the CMake command. What all the things you should require to install before building that project from source code. So here is simply the syntax of this is the syntax. This is the AD is nothing. AD is just the AD target our variable name. We just initialize them. Make sure that you should give space and tab space correctly, because the make file is very sensitive to the space and other thing. AD GCC compiler. Our target is hello. Hello, just I have given binary name. That's why target I have given hello. All means what I want to do all. This is a, you should here use only all because it's specific to the make file. And after that, when you are talking about clean, it will remove everything which was created by you. Not all the thing, but thing which are created by the make file. For example, see what we have hello.c and make file. Just run make command. You will see that there is output GCC hello.c and hello. You can also write make all. By default, it run for the all because here it's what make all and make clean. So what we can do here, we can want to, when we run make clean, it will just remove the hello word from your binary. This is a simple way to run your C program, and in future I will only use CMake and make utility to run all the command. In upcoming classes, in future I will share you how to run 4 to 5. Whenever I will come to the function, I will show you how 4 to 5 function can be linked and compiled to a single executable and can be run by using CMake and make command. So please subscribe to my channel and share to your friend who think is beneficial for them. So this is the end of the class, and after that you can see thanks. If you have any query, you can email me, and for any support, financial support, you can pay to my UPI ID codingforall@Kotak. Any amount you want, it will be beneficial for me. Thank you.